Hi there friends, welcome to Little Mountain Ranch. My name is Chelsea. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Happy to have you with me in the garden where we are going to do another morning harvest. This time of year when there is so much becoming mature in the garden that needs to be picked, I come out every single morning and harvest whatever needs to be harvested, and I try to get that food preserved that day. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes there's more than I can manage in one day, but for the most part, I'm able to do a little bit every single day and stay on top of the garden harvest. I do have some crops that become mature all at once. So we have this big row of onions here. We have 3 more rows of onions about this length up in the crop garden, and those are going to become mature all around the same time. So I'll be harvesting them all at once besides what we're using throughout the summer, and we'll process them over a couple of days, and then it'll be kind of a one and done. We've done broccoli so far and garlic so far this year exactly like that, but every day there's still kind of odds and ends of things that are coming out of the garden. Raspberries would be an example of something that we need to harvest every day to stay on top of it, and we have had an amazing wild raspberry year this year, so we've also been harvesting out of the forest, both Saskatoons and raspberries, and we have picked so much. Feels fantastic to have our freezer full of wild harvested food, but our raspberry patch, which is back here, which was an absolute jungle this year, has been producing so many raspberries for us every day. On the way over here, I saw quite a few different things that I needed to pick, so let's head back into this part of the garden and go grab what's ready over there. Our first stop is here at our chamomile patch. This is a volunteer chamomile patch, and I have been harvesting off this for the last few weeks. I'm going to pick all the flowers off this, and you're going to see how many we get. Probably only about this much of this cottage cheese container. It looks like a lot there, but when you pick them, it's not. So if you want chamomile for winter, you really do need to pick it all summer long, little bits at a time. Thankfully, the bees don't really seem to like the chamomile, so it's easy to pick. The bees are all out and about in the garden, but they tend to be more over on the bachelor buttons that are over here and on the poppies. They love the poppies in the morning, right when the poppies open up. They're usually swarming with honeybees. And we have a little bit of a kind of jungle situation going on here. Beautiful dahlias in the background. I shoved all this parsley because I didn't have anywhere to put it, and I just needed to get it into the ground right in here along the edge of this bed, which it is just loving being there. So we're going to do a big harvest off of that. We have some straw flowers coming on here, our vines climbing up. I have, what do I have climbing up here? The scarlet runners and the, I can never remember how to pronounce this particular variety. I'll put it on the screen for you rather than torturing you with my mispronunciation. Oh look, we have some more of our little volunteers back over here. Remember I was sharing with you about the Russian tarragon and how it just turns into an absolute monster in the garden? This is what I was talking about. I will be lopping it down fairly soon. And then we have all down here, we have mint, but I have harvested probably all the mint that I'm going to need for the year already. So we'll just let this do its thing, which I'll probably regret. Nice little harvest of parsley. I'm tired of broccoli. I did my big harvest, which I think there was around 60 or 65 heads first time around, and then I've been coming out, I think I got 16 the last time we were out here together, and I'm probably going to get another 5 or 10 right now. And processing broccoli with the blanching and the freezing and all of that, it's not my favorite thing in the world, but I do love broccoli, so we'll pick it. That's just a little itty bitty one. These ones here are still nice and firm and fairly small. So we'll take the ones that are starting to loosen and leave the rest. And of course, zucchini. Just a couple. Something so exciting to show you. We have had crazy rain. Just insane. all summer long. And I was concerned that I wasn't going to get any squash, but check this out. To be fair, these are spaghetti squash, and spaghetti squash are quite prolific, but we do have some baby spaghetti squash, a whole bunch of them. You can see some more down there. The actual squash plants are starting to look good. I'm really excited about this one. This one is a yellow summer squash, or a crookneck squash. Oh no, I lied. Actually, that's not true. This one is a white bush acorn squash. And look at that. I thought this one was the crookneck. I know I have a crookneck in here somewhere. So many look at, there's more. Oh, that's so exciting. I do this thing every year with my squash. So once I know that they're growing like these are right now, outside of the summer squash, I'm not gonna look at them again until we harvest them. And just because it makes it fun, it makes the harvest fun. Now I'm not gonna know how many we have or what varieties actually did well or not until we actually do the harvest in the fall. But I have another patch of them down over here. Oh my goodness, look at this, wow. Oh my gosh, I have never grown gladiolas before. Doesn't even look real. That's incredible. I have a bunch more that are going to be blooming any day back here. I cannot wait. Wow, look at that. Oh, holy moly. Wow. Look at that. Breathtaking. I have been battling the aphids on my artichokes. Fortunately, we do have some ladybugs working in here. I've sprayed them with milk. I spray them with water every day, and yet they still have aphids. But I did notice I have a little artichoke flower starting down there. And also we have some of our sweet peas starting to bloom here. This was kind of an afterthought, putting the sweet peas in behind this. I just didn't have anywhere to put them. But they're happy. I keep getting distracted by all the beauty on the way over to the squash bed. Look at this. This zinnia is called splotch for obvious reasons. Isn't that lovely? Candy cane zinnia there. Sunflowers coming on. Look at that beauty. Isn't she gorgeous? Okay, still trying to make my way over to the squash to show you, but on the way past, I noticed that I have some more cabbages that need to be picked. So I am going to be making some kimchi, which I have never done before. That'll probably be in the next video, and we're going to use these Chinese cabbages for our kimchi. And they're looking pretty good. So when I'm harvesting my cabbages, I'll leave the leaves in the bed until the fall, and that just helps to suppress any weeds in between. But I do make sure that I take them out of the garden because they can harbor all the pests that will potentially eat these guys next year. So do make sure that you remove those from the garden, especially if you have any type of pest problem in them. So we'll grab those two. Let's go with this guy here. Okay, we got 3 of those. And then over here, I did notice that one of my Copenhagen market cabbages was getting a little split on the side. So like I said, we've had a lot of rain. It actually rained last night, and rain can cause any kind of extreme level of moisture, whether you left your sprinkler on or the rain fell for hours and hours and hours, especially if there's been any sort of inconsistent watering happening. It can cause the plant to grow really fast and then crack. Cabbages are really prone to that. So we'll grab this little guy here. Most of my cabbages I'll be turning into sauerkraut because we absolutely love sauerkraut around here. I'd really like to leave the rest of these in here, and hopefully they'll all become mature at the same time, and then I can just do a big sauerkraut day and get it done all at once. And as you can see, our squash are growing finally, which is quite exciting. So the ones up here, I have Big Mac pumpkins, Dill's Atlantic pumpkins, Cinderella pumpkins. What else did I do? Some other kind of pumpkin up over here. So that's these big giant sprawling vines, and I don't see any pumpkins actually starting yet, which means we probably won't get really huge pumpkins this year, but we should get a few anyway. Let's see this guy. Oh, we've got some little tiny acorn squash forming here. This one is a Burgess buttercup, and we have lots of little baby Burgesses on there. We don't have actually a ton of baby squashes here compared to up over there. It makes sense that these ones aren't producing fruit when those ones are up there because I planted those ones first. So we are supposed to have an entire week of blazing hot weather, which squash absolutely adore. So hopefully that will cause everything to take off and get these flowering and all of that, because we will potentially have a light frost by the end of August. So that doesn't give us a ton of time for actual fruit production on these plants. So hopefully, fingers crossed. I wasn't planning on having a good squash harvest this year, so even if I get any of them, I'll be happy. I have another little volunteer patch of the chamomile over here, so I'll just pop off some of these while we're here. If you like making your own teas, chamomile is actually a really easy one to grow. Look at the color on that. It almost looks like it's glowing. Beautiful. It's a little steamy in here. I got a couple little tomatoes, and I have some pineapple sage over here that I'm going to pick. Do I have my scissors? Yes, I do. So we'll pop off a few of these, and this I'm going to be using for tea. But I don't want to take too many because I actually want the beautiful red flowers that bloom on here. So I'll just grab a little bit of it. And a couple more tomatoes. Okay, I'm just going to turn my drip irrigation on because these guys need some water, and then we'll head back to the forest garden. Okay, we have our rutabagas right here along with some weeds, and back over here we have our turnips. So I want to do a veggie bake for dinner tonight. So I'm going to grab a couple of little turnips here. Little turnips like this, when they're roasted, taste nice. They're nice and sweet. So we'll grab a couple of those. And then I also want some of these rutabaga tops because they are so good. So I need to actually thin out these rutabagas a little bit. So I am going to pop out some that obviously aren't going to have roots, but do have good tops. And I'll add that to my veggie bake. This part of my garden right here has been neglected. There's been no weeding that's happened here, but I do have some beets in amongst the weeds in here. So let's pull out some beautiful beets to add into our veggie bake too, and we'll use the tops as well. There we go. Okay, I'm actually going to rinse these off before I put them in the wheelbarrow because I bring this wheelbarrow right up into my kitchen, and I prefer to have this stuff clean before it goes into the kitchen. All right, to the forest garden we go. This little cherry tree here is the weirdest little tree, but I kind of love it. So it's called a Cupid cherry tree, northern sour cherry. And as you can see, there's not a lot of leaves on it, and it never produces a lot of leaves, but it always produces a nice little crop of cherries. And these are great cherries for making cherry pie with. So I'm going to get all these picked because they're perfectly ripe right now. It's a little more time consuming, but I like to take the stems off my cherries before they go up to the house because then I don't have to deal with it in the house. Okay, we got our container full here. So now we are going to move on to some currants. Okay, so this currant, I just wanted to show you the leaves that are on here. Every single year, without fail, it develops kind of this red, rusty situation on the leaves, and then it turns to this. And it doesn't impact the production of the fruit at all. And so I just haven't ever done anything with it. This is 7 years old, this plant, and it produces great for me every single year. So something that's interesting about it is that I bought a red currant or black currant, one of the two, and this is definitely neither of those. See? Little teeny tiny kind of champagne colored currants, and that is actually what we think they are. I've asked over on Instagram what people think these are, and they said champagne, and so I looked them up, and sure enough, they do look just like this. So I'll be honest, for the most part, because these are just so tiny, I let these go to the birds every year, but I decided I would make a batch, and this is going to be very labor intensive to get all these berries off, but I decided to make a batch of jelly with these because they'll probably taste good. It'll be very light in color, so it won't be dark as a currant jelly usually is, but the flavor, I mean, they taste like currants. So, and this plant this year is absolutely loaded with them. So we shall pull these off, and then when I'm done getting these off, we'll take everything up to the house and I'll show you what my plans are for all of it. And on actually the way out here, I noticed that I had some ready fennel bulbs, which I love adding to my veggie bake. So I'm going to just run back into the garden and grab one of those once I'm done this. Back in the kitchen, we have our trusty kitchen wheelbarrow here filled with all of the produce. These are the berries, and oh my goodness, what a pain. Not only that, just a pain to pick, but also they are filled with these little tiny beetles, not in the berries, but all over them. So I'm going to have to wash these very well before I do anything with them. As far as all of the vegetables that I picked for the veggie bake, so that's the beets, the turnips, the rutabaga tops, I'm going to use some broccoli. I'm also going to use some potatoes that I have in the fridge. I'll probably throw some carrots in there, maybe even some zucchini. So all I'm going to do with that is chop all those vegetables off after washing them really well, drying them well, and then putting them on a parchment paper lined cookie sheet. I'm going to bake them in the oven with a little bit of olive oil and some garlic scape salt. I'll probably throw some onions and some garlic in there as well. And I bake that all up, all the vegetables all mixed together. And then the way we eat that is a big bowl with a big dollop of sour cream on the top of it and salt and pepper. It is absolutely delicious. I won't bother showing that to you because it's just kind of self-explanatory. Chop the veggies and roast them. But what I will show you is making kimchi. And this is because this is something I've never done before, so I thought it would be fun for us to do together. One problem is I wasn't able to find the specific red pepper that you're supposed to use for making kimchi. So I just did a little bit of research, and apparently I can take just standard red pepper flakes. These are hotter than kimchi red pepper though. So I'm going to use a little bit of these and then mix it with some paprika, some sweet paprika, and apparently that has a very similar flavor to it. I have only had kimchi once before. My sister-in-law is actually Korean, so I had it, oh my gosh, probably 20 years ago now, and it was way too spicy for me, but a lot of my family likes spicy things. So I thought that we would give this a try together. What else do we have that we need to preserve in here? We have our cherries here, which I'm very happy about. I have all of these beautiful flowers here. So we're actually going to set these on this tray of basil that I have drying here from the other day. So I'm just going to move the basil over. I'm going to add our flowers, and then this will just dry here on the counter while I'm waiting for my freeze dryer to finish doing the raspberries, and then it'll go into the freeze dryer. Freeze dried herbs are so great. And then I'm going to do the same thing with all of this parsley, and what I might actually do is just throw these in the freezer because it will preserve their freshness, throwing them in the freezer rather than leaving them on the counter. I had to use my container that we had these in to pick the currants, so I just dumped them in here. So I do pick off the stems for these, and parsley is something that I use a ton, so multiple times a week in different recipes. So I do want to have a ton of parsley. I actually had some left over up till a couple of weeks ago from last year, so doing copious amounts of it really works for how much I use. So this is what an average morning looks like here. I actually got a really late start today. We all did because we were out packing hay off of our fields until 11 p.m. last night. So I did not get going as early as I usually like to. It's actually already almost 1 right now. So, but this is what an average morning looks like, with going out, grabbing whatever needs to be preserved, and getting it actually put up, usually the same day if I can. And I would say it takes me maybe around an hour if I'm filming. It takes me a lot longer, but an hour a day to do this kind of more smaller batch preserving things. And I don't mind starting the day out like that, especially starting the day out in the garden. Don't mind that at all. Got way more parsley than I thought I did out there. That was awesome. Everything always looks a lot smaller outside in the garden than it does once I get it inside. Even the amount, the wheelbarrow out in the garden doesn't look that big, but in the kitchen it looks big. Okay, 1 preservation project down. I went to make my kimchi only to find that I was missing a couple of key ingredients: daikon radish and some scallions. So I now have those. So we're going to continue on with making this recipe. First, we're going to chop this up, and I have a half-gallon jar here, which I'm hoping is going to be sufficient for this recipe. So let's run through the ingredients that we need for this recipe. We need a Napa cabbage, and this one is actually a Chinese cabbage, which is roughly the same thing, daikon radish, scallions, ginger, some garlic. We need some fish sauce, kosher salt, and I am going to be making my own red pepper powder because we weren't able to find any in our grocery store, the kind that you need to actually make this recipe kind of a traditional kimchi. So the things that I found out with doing research on this is that red pepper flakes, traditional red pepper flakes that we use, are a lot hotter than the Korean red pepper powder. So what we're going to do to counterbalance the fire of this is we're going to add some sweet paprika to it. So I'm going to go really light on the amount of pepper flakes that I use in this, and I am going to grind them up with this grinder so that they make a powder. So what we're going to go for with the paprika is that typical red coloring that kimchi has, and a little bit of the sweetness of the sweet paprika. Now, what I understand about this is that there's a possibility that by using these peppers, we'll be changing the way that it ferments a little bit, and the flavor might be a little bit different, which is fine because we don't eat kimchi in our house as a regular thing. We've only ever had it a couple of times before. I have never made it myself, so it's a fermented food. We love fermented food, so I'm sure it's gonna taste just fine. So we're gonna start by getting our ginger grated over here and our garlic grated. Somewhere I do have one of those garlic graters, but I cannot find it. So I'm going to use my box grater here and grate this up. We need around a tablespoon or so to 1 medium-sized cabbage. So I'm going to do 5 or 6 of these cloves. Okay, there's our garlic, and we need to peel our ginger. So we're going to do this the same way that we do sauerkraut, which I make tons of each and every year. So we're going to take our cabbage, put it in a bowl with some salt, massage the salt in until the cabbage gets limp, and then we're going to rinse that salt off. First I have to grate my ginger though. Okay, we're going to slice the end off of our cabbage here. Pull off that piece and that piece because they are looking not perfectly clean. Probably only going to need a quart jar for this, I'm thinking, because this isn't that much cabbage. So you want to use a couple tablespoons of salt for this much. And so we're just going to massage this until it starts softening and liquid starts coming out. And then we're gonna set this aside and let this sit while we're putting whatever else we need to put together as far as prep for this recipe. And then I have decided that I am going to make some of the white currant or those champagne currants. I'm gonna make some jelly with them because I don't have very much. So it'll just be probably a jar, 1 jar of the jelly. But the nice thing about making currant jelly is that there is so much pectin in currants that you don't need to add extra pectin. You can actually get it to gel. Sorry, look at how much that is shrinking already. But you can get it to the gel state by just bringing it up to 220, I think it's 220 degrees Fahrenheit, which doesn't take that long. So we're gonna do that because that is easy. I already have the currants washed here and there were so many bugs in them. What I did is I just put them in a bowl and filled them with water, and then everything kind of floated to the top. And I just did that until they were perfectly clean and there weren't any bugs left in them. The rest of the currants on that bush can definitely go to the birds. I was actually thinking when I was down in my forest garden that I think it's time for me to do a reevaluation on it and decide if the plants that I have in there are ones that I still want to have in there in that place, or if the space could be used better with something else. So, you know, I feel like that I took so many leaves off of that. I think I'm going to add a little bit more. Maybe not. Maybe with all the other stuff, it'll fill out a quart jar. So that is shrunk down to 1/3 of what it was. We have lots of liquid in there, so we're going to set this aside. Okay, so we can actually make our spice paste right now. So we'll do that and then we can just mix it all together, and that part will be really quick. So the first thing that I'm going to do is make some powder here. And I think honestly, I'm only gonna do a teaspoon because, oh, these are fresh. Oh, they're hot. I think because this is a quart jar and I'm trying to think about the amount of heat that I really want in there. I think because for the other spice, you can add up to 6 tablespoons of it. So I think I'm gonna do like a teaspoon. I'm scared. Okay, so we have a teaspoon of that, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of the paprika to it. I don't know about this situation. Okay, I'm gonna make it in this larger bowl because I'm going to add all of the veggies into this. Okay, so we are going to add our ginger and our garlic into there. We're gonna add this, which I don't know about this. Oh my gosh, I don't know, that seems like so much already. Okay, I'm just gonna put that much in. Otherwise it seems like it's gonna be way too much. Add a teaspoon of sugar, 2 tablespoons of fish sauce. It's starting to smell like kimchi. This must be the fish sauce that overpowers it. So we're making our paste. That does not smell very good. Oh dear. I feel like this might be one of those recipes that I try that is a no-go, but I am kind of butchering it, not having the right pepper in it, so I do realize that. But give it a try. Who knows, maybe somebody in the house will love it. Okay, we're going to peel our radish. I made fermented fire cider last year, and I had it, and then I got really, really sick, and now I cannot stomach even the smell of it. And this is kind of similar because it's very fiery smelling. I don't know, friends. I do not know. So we're supposed to cut these into matchstick size pieces, around 1 inch long. So I'm assuming like that. Okay, that should do us for those. And then we're gonna take our scallions. And we need, how many? 4 medium scallions. Scallions are something that I've only grown once. They were beautiful. I think they were called redbeard scallions. They were just gorgeous. But I didn't find that I used them that much. But to be fair, I kind of have a roster of recipes that I use that I know my family likes, and I kind of stick to that. I'm not an overly creative cook, truth be told, but they were so beautiful though. Okay, that's probably going to be good on the scallion amount as well. So let's tidy up our mess here, and then we will let that cabbage sit for a little bit while we put together our jelly. Okay, so we have 1.5 cups. This is a 1.5 cup measure. It's very convenient. Let's see if we can double this recipe, because the recipe that I have, yeah, that's about going to be doubled, so that's perfect. We're going to make some juice with this. I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of water to this and then go let this cook down for a little bit on the stove. This whole process of rinsing off the cabbage, you have to rinse it 3 times, is not something that you do if you're going to be doing other kinds of ferments. The salt that's in there is actually what creates the brine that you use for fermenting with. So this is a different practice than I've tried before. While we're at it, I've just decided to add one more thing, because this is fairly easy to do, and that's to take the cherries, and these have all been pitted, and we are going to just can these up quickly. Since I'm not going to have enough to fill the steam canner over on the stove with the jelly that I'm making, I might as well fill out the canner with this. And that's one of the things that I do when I'm doing these smaller batch preservation projects, is that if there's something else that I can put into the canner to fill it out, I usually try to do that so I'm not running the canner not full. So we're gonna do that. Super easy to do that. We're gonna do this in a bit of a cheat way, which I'm gonna show you in a minute. But right now, I'm gonna put on some gloves and definitely not put my bare hands in with this, because I can imagine it could potentially burn, plus turn my hands red. I mashed up those berries over on the stove just to extract a little bit more of the liquid. And now we're gonna take this and mix it all together with the paste so that it is evenly distributed. Okay, that actually smells better now that it's all mixed together. It smells pretty good. It smells like kimchi without the heat. Now we'll grab our jar here and pack this in. I guess I can just wash the outside of it when I'm done. So this is interesting, because with every ferment actually that I've ever done, there's a lot of liquid in it. And with this, you actually take the liquid out of it. Looks pretty. That's interesting. I'm just gonna double check and make sure I didn't miss anything, because that seems weird to me, because usually the top of this will start to mold if there's not liquid covering it. So this should have brine that comes out the top. So what did I do wrong here? Because it said to rinse off all of the salt and the liquid. Did do it right. It even says to squeeze out all the extra liquid. So I am just gonna pack this down and see. Oh yeah, okay, there's some more liquid coming up there. Certainly not enough to cover the top of this. So what I am going to do is just make a little bit of brine to add to the top of this, so that all that stuff is underneath the liquid level. So now we're really veering off the recipe here. So, but this is a good kind of lesson though, is if you are making a recipe, a fermenting recipe, and you don't have enough liquid to actually cover, you do need to add liquid to cover, because otherwise what's going to happen is your stuff will mold. Anything that is above and exposed to the air will start molding. So I've just mixed a little bit of salt and water here, and I'm just going to pour that in. There, just a little bit, not very much. And then I have my weight. So this is called a pickle puck. I'm going to add my weight in there to help keep everything down below. And then this is a pickle pipe. I'm just gonna wash the rim of that off a bit. This is called, the brand is Mason Tops. I love them. I've been using them for a very long time. Okay, there we go. That looks like kimchi. It's pretty and it smells good now, so that's good. So we're gonna set that aside for up to 5 days. It's going to be very warm for the next couple of days, and your fermentation will work way faster if it is warm. So keep an eye on it. It just says to test it every couple of days until it gets to the flavor that we're looking for. I'm also going to make sure that I set this on a plate so that if this comes up over the top, which often happens with fermentation, it doesn't end up on my counter and stain and wreck my counter. So we'll stick that back there, and we're gonna pour this in here. And then we're just going to hang this and let this drip until all of the liquid is out. It doesn't take too long. We're going to add a tablespoon of sugar to each of these jars, and you can adjust the amount of sugar that you want to add. This is one of my mom's tricks. Shortcut tricks. And then we're going to add our cherries right into our jars. I'm gonna pack these in there pretty tight. Didn't need quite that many. Okay, now we are just going to top off our jars, leaving about 3/4 of an inch of headspace with hot water. And we're gonna debubble and top off again if we need to. And I'm not having to worry about washing the rim off because I didn't get anything on it with the sugar going in at the bottom before there was any liquid. There's not sticky residue or anything like that. So these are now ready to pop into the canner. So I have around a cup of our liquid here, and we want to add now a cup of sugar. So equal parts juice to sugar, and now onto the stove. Okay, so what we're looking for here is if you have a thermometer, 220 degrees Fahrenheit, you want it to get up to that temperature. I'm just gonna be able to eyeball this because I've made jelly lots, so I'll be able to tell when it hits the gel state. You can also use the plate in the freezer method where you put a plate in the freezer, bring it out, add a little bit of your liquid to it, and if you can run your finger through it and the track of your finger holds in that little puddle of jelly, then you're good to go. If you want perfectly clear jelly, don't squeeze your jelly bag. If you don't care like me, then go ahead and squeeze until your heart's content, but you will end up with a less clear jelly. And because I'm using organic cane sugar, it gives a little bit of a caramel color to my jellies. Again, I don't worry about that. I'm more interested in the taste of it than the way it's going to look. If I was going to be sharing this as a gift, I would probably want it to be clear and just use the more processed sugar that doesn't have the molasses in it, like the organic cane sugar does. Or let's get this canner starting to heat up over here. And we have our 1/2 pint jars ready over here. This is the kind of thermometer that I use. This is actually a cheese thermometer. A candy thermometer is better, or even one of those automatic thermometers works better, but I thought I would just pull this out and show you. Usually takes around 10 minutes or so to bring this up to temperature here. So we're at about 200. We're getting close. You know what? I'm actually gonna call this, I think. So what you're gonna start seeing, let me see if I can show you this. When you run your spoon, even around the edge, when it starts to thicken like this, like look at that. We're at the gel point. So that means my thermometer is wrong. We're going to ignore the thermometer. I'll let this come down, cool down a little bit, and then we'll put it right into our jars. There we go, into our canner, crank our heat up. We're going to process these for 15 minutes. Okay, friends, we are done. So we have our cherries there and our jelly. I'm going to be very careful. I don't like moving jelly when it is in its gelling up state, but it looks pretty. And then we have our kimchi over here and all of our herbs that I have yet to freeze dry here. So that is the parsley. And then we have the chamomile here, the, what was this, pineapple sage here, and then the basil from the other day over here that is drying very quickly. It needs to go in the freeze dryer. And we are actually going to use the broccoli to make a giant broccoli salad, which I will show in an upcoming video. It is absolutely delicious, one of our favorite summer salads, and very filling as well. We're gonna have that with some pizza. And the other 2 cabbages that I have, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with those yet. One of them we did end up frying up and eating with our veggie roast, but I have those 2 other ones that I need to deal with. And then a couple zucchinis, and I think I'm gonna make some zucchini bread out of those. So not bad for one early morning well, I guess it wasn't early morning, but should have been early morning, an early afternoon harvest. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me in the garden and in the kitchen, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye everyone.